Hello and welcome to this interview with Mark DeMoss, one of our artists presently on display at Alpha Art Gallery's current exhibition, Mirror to the World. My name is Katie Perrin, and together we will be going over some of DeMoss's artistic process as well as the pieces that were graciously contributed to both our physical and online presentations. We're going to start off pretty simple today. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
Great. We're so lucky to have this opportunity to talk to you about your art. So first, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from and where do you live now? And how did you initially get into art and begin your career as an artist?
Well, I was conceived in Canada, born in Virginia, and then we moved up with the family to New Jersey in the late 60s, early 70s. So my father was following his job, and my mother was an artist. She was a painter in Indonesia. She learned to paint, and I've been doing her diaries from when she had been interned by the Japanese during World War II, and she was very much into watercolor, and so we sort of started. She stopped painting for a long time, except she was doing ceramics and all sorts of other things. She was always working in art in some way. And so after my father passed away, she was brought back into watercolor, and I started doing artwork at the same time, the same day. An old neighbor of ours got us going, and I started out doing pen and ink, and eventually I did etchings, pastel, watercolor. Now I'm doing oils, whatever. So I do a whole bunch of different things. I don't know if that's how sort of started. Sort of a family thing.
For sure, that's like you can definitely see that like the watercolor is your medium that you work with now. And on that note, I wanted to ask you about your inspiration behind the selection of your watercolor paintings on display in Mirror to the World. What inspired you to create these?
Well, they're all sort of during the time of COVID. So it's after things started cleaning up a bit, getting a little better, I started going out to paint and on location, which I really hadn't done a whole lot over the last 30 years. I every once in a while I would get out and paint, and the last couple of years I've been going out regularly. I started out doing a big oil on location in Jockey Hollow, and got back doing watercolors in these sites too. And so one of them is there. The one of the Wick House was done at Jockey Hollow, and I was really pleased with that one. It sort of has a nice loose kind of the thing is, the light changed immediately after I started painting it. So, but the inspiration sort of stayed there. I'm always looking for the light and trying to sort of draw your eye through the painting. And so there's then there was the Knuth Farm, and I've been going to Natterar and Willowwood, and so it's been getting back into sort of painting on location and trying to create something that's exciting and I work very fast when so actually I've got one of them here. This is one of the ones that was sort of one of my inspirational ones, which was done very quickly on the spot. Ended up getting it. I got into one of the shows that I do out in Connecticut, and I just saw you'd see. I saw the things you see through the windows and all that, and how the lighting affects but I try to keep things sort of. You try to sort of create your details where maybe your first center of interest is, and over here is almost no detail. But you hopefully you get that that impression of the quick impression of the farm tool, the farm
Yeah.
in light. When I first found this place, I sort of I thought, oh, there's a couple nice paintings. So I did a couple things. Every time I go back, I find more and more. And I try different times of day. And so when you find something interesting, you really want to go back. Though, I've gone back and back to Jockey Hollow. Like, there's so many different things you can find there around the Wick House, which is where I like, generally I like to paint. I don't like to go into just plain woods, because woods don't have an organization to them for us.
Definitely.
I like to have that confrontation between the man-made and nature, and so in places like that is a wonderful place for that.
Yeah, and you can definitely observe the marriage of nature and civilization and man in your work, which I definitely want to talk about a little bit later, more in depth, and ask you about some more of your pieces. But first, why do you choose to work with the translucent medium of watercolor, and how does this medium relate to your overall aesthetic practice and the messaging in your work?
So, well, I work in watercolor, pastel, and oil. So I haven't been doing pastel for a while, but I now have a class in that. So when I do something, I have to, it sort of forces me into working in it, and trying. What I like is each medium has a sort of a different kind of over to it. I tend to do more nature in oil. And I like doing cityscapes, and the combination of nature and man-made in the watercolor, and I like the bold, quick way you can sort of get an impression in watercolor. And my favorite ones tend to be things that I paint very fast. In oil, you tend to work a lot longer, although I've done very fast oils too. But so in each, pastel, I like doing things like old buildings. My favorite subject for that was old Philadelphia. So I love the colors you can get, and the texture, sort of fits that.
And in your artist statement, you describe your ideology and the motivation behind your aesthetic practice, in which you say your purpose is to capture and create a sense of life and movement through color and light, through experimenting with watercolor, as well as mention how you approach each painting as a kind of puzzle, in which you seek to find the right approach of color and design to create a personal statement in a moment in time. How would you describe your aesthetic practice in general, and why do you choose to create representational works of art?
I've always worked in representational art. That's where I feel at home. Mm-hmm. And but I always want to sort of create things that are and I try to create things of beauty, and so I like color. I like to get more color into something that generally is there. Mm-hmm. And always like the response when people say, "Oh, that's better than a picture." Which is a simple thing, but it's always, each painting, each subject is different, and always looking for what's gonna, how do I lead my eye through something? I can't, if everything is not connected, if nothing's connected in my head, I can't paint something. So
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I see that, especially in your work, Fall Holly Berries, and works like that, where you see this photographic quality kind of, but and I think that we talked about this a little bit earlier in our interview, but I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the central themes or subject matters that you explore in your works on display in Mirror to the World. So what kind of themes and subject matters do you focus on in these works?
Well, of course, there are sort of a few of them were sort of things that are done, a couple are done on location. Mm-hmm. And but generally they're things that are near, close by. So so it's finding an approach to everything, as I find them. rather than having the same sort of thing each time. And sometimes it's just throwing in another color, like, oh, I've never used this color before. Let's and that's what I did with the Wick House. There's no red in it, but I used like a purpley color, and hopefully it sort of gave me a little different, I always like to give myself a curve.
Yeah, definitely.
So each piece will hopefully have its own kind of feeling to it. But this was I had photographed this one, the holly berries, a long time ago, and I tried to do it once. And this is when I originally did it. I did the things on dark against light, and so now I've been doing more things where I've been painting the light terms first, trying to and sort of doing an overall color, and then painting around things to make them pop.
Yeah, I color. So I think color is definitely something, like a theme that you explore throughout all your work.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about one of my personal favorite pieces. I'm really intrigued by your work, Fall Hollyberries, fall hollyberries and their intricately beautiful colored leaves dominate the picture plane. I love how the cropped nature of the painting invites the viewers to contemplate nature close up and prompts them to reflect on the beauty of the natural world. So what is kind of the story behind this piece and the significance of the plant you chose to depict?
As I said, I photographed it years ago, and I always liked it. So I loved the colors and all that. And so, originally I'd done it. I had tried it, and I was happy with it. I liked the way it looked, but it wasn't really finished. But although maybe it is finished, I've never felt like adding anything more to it. But this is totally different than the way that the latest one came. And also that's the one thing I did that it was not on location, but it was on a Zoom class. And I had always stored this thing, like always wanted to do it. And so I did it for my Zoom class. And one of the things with a Zoom class, I get to paint at my pace. And then and as I'm doing it, I'm starting to see different things, and how I started building up color and trying to really push the eye in different ways that were not in the original reference. And so it was a fun one to paint, and it went pretty fast for I'm not sure how well everybody else in the class did, but
Yeah, and your works on display in Mirror to the World prominently feature scenes of nature and are set in the natural world. And I wanted to know your motivation behind depicting different elements of the natural world and what draws you to exploring the genre of, I guess, landscape art.
Well, that landscape is it's sort of always been my favorite kind of subject. And I started out by painting. when I was taking classes with somebody like Bob Saxon, and he would take us out to paint on location. And I also studied with Frank Ziccarelli, and they're both like people who could go on location and paint, without, and capture something very quickly. And they taught like a much more quick approach rather than this drawn out layers and layers and layers. I think just too much super realistic stuff and too much hard edge stuff. And I like things are not, hopefully I'm not too perfect. I'm not trying to be a photograph, and I could sort of almost feel like it feels like it's moving. That's what I sort of felt when I was doing those paintings, studying with Bob. It was working with a lot of color on a lot of water, actually, on location, and the result I always felt like a moment in time, but not quite in focus. And I always liked that look to it, and I sort of was able to translate that into working on, in the studio. Uh, but we were all scared of Bob. Like you always make sure, I always want to make sure that if I did something, I went full out. He would always sort of, look to that thing. Oh, that's very quaint. Like, you know, uh,
Yeah, and that we talked about this a little bit earlier, like we touched on it, like the idea of nature and man like being the same painting.
Mhm.
And you can really see that in both your works, Knuth Farm Relics 7/321 and Wick House Fence 5/21. And both of them feature similar iconography, including the exteriors of seemingly uninhabited brown wooden houses, as well as both employ similar sunlit and earth tone color palettes. What is your inspiration behind creating and naming these pieces, and what stories do they tell?
Of course, the name it's a date they did it, because it's the lighting and all that of that date, and like I like that idea of sort of using it as a naming thing for something. When you paint on location, it's all done in one day, maybe sometimes just a couple hours or less, and I don't sort of stop and think too much.
Yeah.
But I see something that grabs my attention, that the way the light's hitting something, or what the colors and the shadows. That's sort of what grabs me on location.
Mm-hmm. And you can definitely see like colors, the theme of those as well, and like the light. And of your works on display, one that really stands out to me is your painting English Farm Crossroad, which is my personal favorite. I love the way that you play with like colors, like cool tones, space, and light in this work. What is the inspiration behind why you chose to depict this specific winter landscape, and what is the story behind this piece?
Well, the story behind it is a friend of mine showed it to me in the middle of winter. He wanted to show. He's sort of friends at this gallery in Bernardsville, and he was going to show me around. He sort of helps run something called English Farm. It's another place I've gone over and over again. They'd have this special event every year, and I'd always try to go out there and paint on location there. I love these old, the old farms and stuff, and things that feel used. I sort of like things that are real, that have a lot of character to them. And so he showed me this back way to see this place, and I'd never heard of it. It's not around the corner for me, and like he knew this one little location. We drove down this little side street, and he took us out and took me out, and like, they'll take this set of photographs from the side of it, from this modern new side street. And I've gone back over and over again trying to find the side street. I've not found it. And whenever I asked him about it, he'd act like I'm crazy. like what special place? But it's a subject I did as when I first started working in oils, and I did it as a triptych. And so I did this large, I did 3 small canvases, like 14 by 18, 18 by 24, smallish, and then put them together in one frame, and ended up getting like Best in Show in one of there used to be this wonderful show called St. John the Mountain, and like it was like one of the best-selling shows. Unfortunately, doesn't exist anymore because you can't get enough people to help run them. But it was, so I always liked that subject, and so I decided the first painting I did in the pandemic was I pulled out this photograph I had taken of it, and I filmed it myself on the YouTube for myself, and I really liked the way it came out. And so this is the second version of that. I think the first version should still be somewhere around, but I really like that subject. I said, you can see all the old barns. Like one thing when you talk to an artist, you don't want them to come back. If they come back from their travels, a lot of people bring you the most fancy, royal residence with, that's all maintained and perfect and all that, and like with thousands of windows and all sorts, flowers and everything's in their neat in their place. Like, we don't want that. We'd rather have the back road behind things, and the things with character that not everybody sort of sees. That's things that have character and show some light. But also, I think what's interesting about the Knuth farm is like it's after the owners passed away. They're trying to fix it up. They don't have much money out there, and so it's sort of slow. A lot of it's slowly decaying into the thing. All the tires are flat. Those things are sitting out there out in the open, becoming part of nature. But I think they have a aesthetic beauty that I think much more than the new version, a pristine new one off the
and of
the factory.
Books, which is your favorite, or which do you have a particular attachment to? If you don't have a favorite, which piece would you like to spend a little bit more time talking about?
I guess they're probably all favorites, because I love the way that the Jockey Hollow one came out in like 40 minutes or less, and like the feeling when I was doing that, I no idea how anybody's gonna see it, but but I love the way that one came out. Particularly, I've been showing the holly berries is probably the favorite of the beauty of those things. I was very pleased the way that one came out, but I like all the ones that turn out on location. So I am very happy with because it's something you really can't get from the photographs. Although it can drive you crazy on location. Getting something to work on location can be very hard, because some of these places, the light, the sun will come out and then it'll go away, and they're like, okay, I try to paint this thing in light, but now it's in shadow. Like, what part can I work on until the light comes back? And so everyone's sort of a different kind of sort of experience mixed up with what's been going on in nature. And this has been a beautiful year for fall. So I've been doing, this is one based, since then I've been to, this is Speedwell Lake, which is about a mile from my house. And one of my students said, oh, aren't you going to take some pictures out there at Speedwell Lake? I'm like, yeah. So I started going out there, and I've taken a couple hundred photographs now. This is another one I painted. I got out like in the perfect time for all the colors to be coming out, and there's a lot of different things with this one. It's the clouds. There were so many clouds, but when I took the photograph, this area had some light on it, but everything else was in deep shadow, because the sky was mostly clouds. And so I had to I'm carrying my camera and phone around, and like, oh, the sun's coming out. See, I can get, it was like, it was so wonderful. The different kind of, shots you can get from the same spot, just minutes apart. And with the beautiful colors that were coming out, which, it was a wonder.
Yes. So thank you so much, Mark. I don't have any more questions. However, if there's anything else you'd like to add that you might have thought of during our anything you're working on now, any shows you're going to be in soon, or any lingering thoughts, Feel free to share.
There's nothing that's coming up soon that I know of. It's been a long year. I've been doing my first outdoor shows, real outdoor shows I've done in several years. And so it's, finally sort of trying to get out and showing things. It's just been a bit hard the last number of years. And so, but I think things are hopefully starting to come together. Hopefully we're going to get past this thing with COVID.
Yeah, definitely. And once again, thank you so much for speaking with us all today and sharing insight into your creations. I would also like to take this moment to thank all of our sponsors, including Amboy Bank, Magyar Bank, Johnson & Johnson, New Brunswick City Center, Middlesex County Cultural and Heritage Commission, Bristol Myers Squibb, and Pfizer Inc. Thank you.
And I'd like to thank the people at Alpha Gallery. You do a wonderful job. I'm always pleased to be invited to be in your shows.